Good morning friends, welcome back to Parnika tutorials. In this video, I want to discuss what is a deadlock, what are the examples for a deadlock, what are the necessary conditions for deadlock. So I request everyone to watch the complete video for better understanding. First let me define what is a deadlock. A set of processes are said to be in deadlock if they wait for happening of an event caused by others in the same set. This scenario we will call it as a deadlock. Let me discuss with a simple example. Let's take that you have resource R1 and resource R2. You have 1 unit of resource R1, 1 unit of resource R2. If you have only 1 unit of resource R1, you can allocate to any one process. Let's take that resource R1 has been allocated to the process P1. Now process P1, if it wants to complete its task, it needs the resource R2 also. Is it clear? So after getting the resource R1, process P1 is requesting for the resource R2. However, the resource R2 has already been allocated for the process P2. Now process P2, if it wants to complete, it needs the resource R1. Now process P1 is waiting for the resource R2, process P2 is waiting for the resource R1. Now resource R1 is with whom? With the process P1. Resource R2 is with whom? Process P2. Now if they want to complete, they need other resource, but those resource is wait with the another process. So now both the process are waiting for the releasing of the resource R2 and resource R1, but they are holding one resource and they are requesting for other resource. So this scenario is a deadlock, will leads to the deadlock. Is it clear? Are you able to understand? Or let me discuss with another example for you. Let's take that two persons are there, such as person P1, person P2. Both want to take the printout. If you want to take the printout, one, you need the system. Let's take that you need the desktop and you need the printer. Am I right or wrong? So that whatever the file you have, that file you can take the printout. Now you have only one desktop. So desktop is only one and the printer is also one. Now let's take that person P1 came and he took the desktop. At the same time, person P2 came and he took the printer. Now person P1 has the desktop, but if he want to print his document, he need the printer. Now person P2 also want to take a printout. He got the printer, but he need the desktop. Is it clear? Are you able to understand? Now this printer is a old one. Without this desktop, it is not possible to take the printout. Now both the persons have the ego. The person P1 is saying that you release the printer so that I will take the printout and I will go. But similarly, person P2 is also saying that you give me the desktop, I will take the printout and I will go. So both will be not release their own resource and wait for others' resources. Is it clear? So this scenario also leads to a deadlock. Let me discuss one more example for you. Maybe this example will connect with you. Now let's take that in a home, husband is there, okay, and wife is there. Is it clear? Now it is an IPL season. Husband want to watch the IPL, okay, and wife want to watch some serials. Is it clear? Are you able to understand? In their home only one TV is there. Now if you have one TV, anyone can watch the TV. Am I right or wrong? Now let's take that for a TV, you will have a one remote. Am I right? Now both of them want to watch the TV. Now if they want to watch the TV, they need the remote to switch on the TV. Now let's take that in a remote, everyone know you will have a battery. Am I right? Without battery, remote will not work. Is it clear? Now let's take that husband has taken the remote, but however he forgot to see whether battery is there or not, and the wife is very intelligent. She removed the battery. Okay, now battery is with the wife, remote is with the husband. Now husband requests for give me battery so that I will watch the IPL and you can watch the serial at later in Hotstar somewhere. And wife is also very intelligent. She says that you give me the remote, I will watch the serial now. You can watch the highlights of the IPL match. Now both will have the egos Am I right or wrong? Now, the husband will not give the remote, wife will not give the battery. Now, both will not watch their IPL and serial. So, this scenario also leads to a deadlock. Am I right or wrong? So, these are the examples for the scenarios of deadlock. Now, we will discuss what are the necessary conditions for the deadlock. Is it clear? The necessary conditions for the deadlock is, one is the mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, circular wait. If these conditions satisfy, then we will say that it is a deadlock. If any one condition is disabled, then it will not have any deadlocks also. So if you have all these necessary conditions satisfied, then only we will say that it is a deadlock. If any one is not satisfied, that condition we will say that it is not a deadlock at all. Now first let me discuss what is a mutual exclusion. Now let's take that a resource, you have a printer. Now if you have a printer, only one process can use the printer at a time. Am I right or wrong? Suppose let's take that process P1, process P2, process P3 want to take the printing. Am I right or wrong? So at a time, either process P1 or process P2 or process P3 can perform the operations on the printer. Am I right or wrong? So now this is a mutual exclusion. Even let's take that you have a remote and the battery. Now remote, only one person can hold the remote. Am I right or wrong? Even the battery, one person can hold the battery. So if both persons can get the battery, then obviously the husband would have kept the battery in the remote and he would have watched the IPL. So mutual exclusion means the resource cannot be allocated to the two process at the same time. Is it clear? If you have one unit of resource R, is it clear? That resource can be allocated to any one process at a single instance. Is it clear? If multiple processes can use the resource at the same time, if you have one unit, if multiple processes can use that one at the same time, then there is no chance of deadlock. Am I right or wrong? Is it clear? So if the deadlock should happen, the resources should be mutual exclusion. Meaning is that the resource, if you have one unit of resource, any one process can be used at a time. Now hold and wait. Hold and wait is nothing but, look at here. Now process P1 has the resource R1 and it is waiting for the resource R2. Now what it is doing, it is holding the resource R1 and it is waiting for the resource R2. Is it clear? Are you able to understand it or not? Process P1 holding the resource R1 and it is waiting for the resource R2. Similarly, process P2 is holding the resource R2 and it is waiting for the resource R1. Is it clear? So you have a resource and you are waiting for another resource to complete its task. Similarly, the husband has the remote and he is waiting for the battery. Similarly, the wife has the battery and she is waiting for the remote. Am I right or wrong? So one is holding one resource and waiting for the other resource. Let's take that. If the husband has released the remote and the wife has the battery, then obviously wife can watch the serial. Am I right or wrong? But when the deadlock situation will happen, you are holding one resource and you are waiting for other resource. If you get that resource, then only you will complete the task. Is it clear? Are you able to understand it or not? So the hold and wait is a one necessary condition a deadlock should happen. Is it clear? Now no preemption. No preemption means, now let's take that. Now husband is holding the, what you called, the remote and wife is having the battery. Now let's take that son came. Okay. Now son want to watch the, let's say that son watch some YouTube movie or something he want to watch, or he want to watch some short film or something. Let's say that he want to watch something. Okay. What it is, we don't know. Am I right or wrong? Because we don't know the son is. Now let's take that as the son requested husband and wife, okay, you both are not watching the IPL and the serial respectively, give me your resource so that I will have fun. Now let's take that, obviously father and mother loves the son, So let's take that father has given the remote and mother has given the battery. Now he will keep the battery in the remote and he will watch it. Am I right or wrong? Then there is no deadlock because the resource now these two persons are waiting, but son is enjoying. Am I right or wrong? But what is the no preemption means? Now let's take that process P1 is holding the resource R1 and it is waiting for the resource R2. Now process P2 is requesting for the resource R1. If someone or the operating system, if we talk the reality, if the operating system preempts the resource R1 from the process P1, then obviously it can allocate the resource R1 to the process P2. Then it will be the process P2 will complete the task. Then there is no deadlock. Am I right or wrong? Here also the husband is holding the remote and wife is holding the battery. Now some man in middle came and they said, okay, husband is good, tomorrow you can watch the serial, and if he says that you give the battery, tomorrow he will give the remote to you. Then if they come to such agreement, then there is no deadlock. So no preemption means if some process is holding a resource, now no one should preempt it. Am I right or wrong? Suppose let's take the process P1 is doing the printing. Now suddenly someone or the operating should not release the printer from the process P1. Are you able to understand? So no preemption is one of the necessary condition for a deadlock. Circular wait. Circular wait is nothing but, look at here also. The resource R1 has been allocated to the process P1 and it is waiting for the resource R2. Now process P2 have the resource R2, it is waiting for the resource R1. So it is a circular wait. Is it clear? Or let me give another example for you. Is it clear? Let's take that you have three processes such as P1, P2, P3. Now you have three resources such as R1, R2, R3. Is it clear? Now let's take that resource R1 has been allocated to the process P1. See, whenever I give the arrow towards the process, the meaning is that the resource has been allocated to the process P1. Similarly, if you look at here, R1 arrow towards the process P1. So the meaning is that the resource R1 has been allocated to the process P1. Now process P1 is requesting for the resource R2. Whenever there is an arrow towards the particular resource, the meaning is that the process is requesting for the resource R2. Is it clear? So this one is allocated and this is requesting. Is it clear? Are you able to understand? Similarly, the resource R2 has been allocated to the process P2. Now process P2 wants to complete the task, then it needs the resource R3. Similarly, the resource R3 has been allocated to the process P3. Now process P3 wants the resource R1 to complete its task. Now look at here. Resource R1 is with the P1, resource R2 is with the P2, resource R3 is with the P3. Now P1, if it wants to complete its task, it needs the resource R2 also. Is it clear? Similarly, process P2, if it wants to complete its task, it needs the resource R3 also. Similarly, process P3 want to complete its task, then it needs the resource R3 and also resource R1. Resource R3 is with the already with the process P3. Now it is waiting for the resource R1. Now it is again a circular wait. Process P1 is waiting for the process P2. Process P2 is waiting for the process P3. Now process P3 is waiting for the process P1 because process P1 needs the resource R2. That resource is with whom? Process P2. If process P2 release it, then process P1 will get it. Then it will complete the task. So process P1 is waiting for the process P2 to release the resource R2. Similarly, process P2 is waiting for the process P3 to release the resource R3. Similarly, process P3 is waiting for the process P1 to release the resource R1. So it is a circular wait. Process P1 is waiting for process P2. Process P2 is waiting for the process P3 to do something. Process P3 wants process P1 to do something. So it is a circle. So that one will call it as circular wait. Is it clear? So these are the four necessary conditions a deadlock should happen. If any one condition is disabled, then it will not lead to a deadlock. So I hope you have understood what is a deadlock, beautiful examples on the deadlock and the unnecessary conditions. If the examples are bad, sorry for it. Thank you for watching the complete video. Have a nice day.